Hello and welcome. My name is Dani. This episode is an upcycle of this old purple suit that I thrifted. If you like episodes like this, then make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell for lots more. I've been wanting a short suit for a while now, so I figured I would try to turn this into that because the skirt was so big. So I watched a few tutorials for how to make shorts, and the one thing that I found everyone had in common is removing the waistband. So I started doing that, as you can see right here. I removed one set of stitches and I realized that the fabric was really wrinkled because there was elastic in the waistband. So I took out the elastic and then I grabbed my iron and I started ironing out all of those wrinkles so that this fabric would be a lot easier to work with. And then I continued to remove the waistband on the other side. I had to remove the zipper because it was on the side, and I'm going to be pulling out different measurements from each side, and I want everything to be even, so I have to completely replace that. You want to do this pretty carefully if you plan on reusing the same zipper. I've made the mistake in the past where I seam ripped right through a zipper, so I was real careful this time. Now this particular skirt, if you noticed at the beginning of the video, it had a pleat down the center. So in order to make sure everything lays flat, what I had to do was just seam rip and open up that pleat. Remember, we're going to reuse this fabric, so I had to do this part really carefully, and then after I do that, I'm just going to open it up, lay it flat, and then we're going to iron out as much of the wrinkles as we can. I like it. I think it's looking pretty good so far. To make the pattern for the shorts, I took a pair that I already have and I folded them in half, and then I aligned them with the fold side of my fabric because remember, we opened up all that fabric. Now we are just going to trace a pattern of our shorts, and I'm giving myself lots of extra room here just because I've never done this before and I want space in case I make a really big mistake. So after you trace your shorts, you're just going to cut right along that line. This part is pretty simple. It doesn't have to be perfect if you give yourself extra space. You're going to need enough fabric to do this twice because that's going to be the front and the back of your shorts. So repeat this step one more time. Now you have two pieces, the front and the back, and you are going to take the outside part and face them against each other because we are going to stitch the sides. Next, grab some straight pins to pin these two pieces together so that you could sew them. I recommend pinning this horizontally instead of vertically because you can sew right over the horizontal pins. I've never done this before and I was relying on other tutorials, so I made a mistake. I sewed straight down the open seam and I went too far. So you only want to sew down the line to the point where it curves and then stop. Here's what it looks like when you do it the wrong way. So now I have to use the seam ripper to open up just a few inches because we're going to sew that part in just a moment. This part might look tricky, but it's really easy. Just grab your shorts from the center seam, hold on to those, and then pull them open. So basically you're just changing the fold of the shorts, and now we're going to sew the crotch of the shorts. After you line everything up and pin it, you are just going to sew the curve into the center of the shorts, and this just takes a little bit of patience, but it was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. If you want to show your support for the channel, which I would really appreciate, please screenshot this episode, post it to an Instagram story, then tag and hashtag it at Dani Walker so I can find it and share it with my followers. Here's a little behind the scenes mistake that I made. So since this is recycled fabric, essentially, I had a lot of extra fabric and there ended up being this panel that I did not need on the side. So I just removed this panel, and then in order to make sure that everything was even, I took out that same amount of fabric on the other side. Then I just re-sewed both of the sides closed. Like I said, I used more fabric than I thought that I would need because you can always go smaller, but I couldn't add any fabric after it was already cut. Off camera, I pinned down the waistband and now I'm just ironing this down. I just think it looks a lot cleaner, and for me personally, I find it easier to sew if things aren't really bulky, so a crease just helps me to make everything neater, but it's totally optional. Now it's time to install the zipper, and I'd never done this successfully before, so I was really nervous about this part. Earlier I said that I re-sewed this side seam, and in hindsight I really didn't need to do that. So now I have to seam rip it, but the benefit is that I had this nice little guideline from the stitches after I seam ripped this, and I used this guideline to install the zipper, which you'll see in just a moment. Now I turn the shorts inside out, and I want everything to lie nice and flat, so I ironed this part, and don't worry about those extra threads. I was gonna take care of those later. Now, like I said, you can see that old line, and I used it to align the zipper, and this made things a lot easier. I made sure that I placed the zipper a little higher because I'm gonna make sure that that top gets tucked in, and then I'm basically just pinning this on and making sure that my pins are horizontal. This will make it really easy to sew. This just takes a moment, and make sure during that process that it's really straight and that everything's laying flat. And then it makes it really easy to just sew right along the edge of that zipper. And if you do it this way, then it's gonna have the effect of an invisible or an unexposed zipper. So just go as far as you can down to the bottom. Do that on both sides. And then you'll see that the zipper is a little exposed, but if you just iron it, you can iron the fabric down, and it's going to help to hide that zipper even more. So by the time this is finished, it's pretty much invisible, and I was just so excited with the result of this because, like I said, it was the first time that I did this successfully. Now it's time to reattach the waistband. This ended up being really easy. All I had to do was sandwich the shorts between the original waistband, and then I pinned this, and then I sewed as close as I possibly could to the edge of that. And this just took a little bit of patience, so then I made sure that line was really nice and straight. After that, I cut the excess fabric that I had on the waistband, and then I just hand stitched right here to make sure that it's not going to fray. And then I tacked down this little extra piece of fabric by hand. I just thought that was easier than doing it on the machine. Now it's time to reattach the clasp back onto the waistband, and that I just hand sewed again. Super simple. The last thing that I had to do was hem the shorts. I put them on and pinned them where I wanted the length, and then I used the iron to make that really nice crease. And after this, off camera, I tried them on again just to make sure that this is exactly where I wanted them. And then this was easy. All I did was hem the edge. And after that, the shorts were finished. Now it was time to add a little detail to the jacket, and I was inspired by this on Pinterest or Instagram. So bummed I lost the inspiration photo for it, but all I did was measure off 2 inches, and then I am just going to cut the cuff of the sleeve off, but we are going to save it and keep it because we're still going to reattach it. After that, I measured 1.5 inches on this, then I pinned it and hemmed it so there's no fraying. Super easy, just takes about a minute. I set that to the side, and then I cuffed the remaining part of the jacket, and then I'm ironing this down just to make sure that that's really straight and it looks really clean. And this part I did not even bother pinning. I just went for it and started sewing, which sometimes I do. I just felt like the ironing took care of it, and I really didn't need to pin it because it's such a small area of the jacket. Now that we have both of those parts hemmed, we're gonna reattach them. So I found these awesome beads on sale at Hobby Lobby, so I picked up 2 strands of them, and all I'm doing is using the beads to reattach the sleeve. I spaced them out as best as I could, and then after I was done, I ended up readjusting a few of them. So if you have to cut a few of these off and redo it, no big deal. And then after that, the entire coat was done, and here is the finished product. If you like this upcycle, then please give this episode a thumbs up and share it with your friends. I hope that it inspired you for your next upcycle and showed you what you can do to bring some new life into some fun thrifted pieces. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you are subscribed and you come back for more.